Hello and welcome to Coach's Conversation Café. I am your host, Keith Rodriguez, and as always, I have with me the CEO and owner of Reconnecting Youth, Adam Valencia. Good afternoon,
morning.
Adam.
Good afternoon.
We have a nice little show for you guys today. Sit back, relax, enjoy. Got a great guest here. Happy to have him. He's a busy guy, carved out a little niche of time for us to be on the show. And it is good to see him. He is Art Villarreal, the new principal at Hester Elementary in Farmersville, California. What's going on, Art?
Thanks, guys. Good to be here, man. It's been a long time since the three of us have been in the same area, but sorry if the construction out there is too noisy. There's all kinds of things going on campus, so if it gets noisy, let me know. Not much I can do about it, but at least I'll know it's a little noisy.
Not a problem. We maintain the Broadway mantra here. The show must go on.
It's got to go on. Go on.
So, Art, let's get started with our viewers. Let's let them know a little bit about yourself, and that you were an athlete and your academic background, and let's fill them in, man. You have some good stuff to share.
Definitely. Well, my journey started a long time ago. Started in Goshen, California, Goshen Elementary School. I started playing in the youth athletic leagues there. A guy named Coco Hernandez and the late Coach Flores. Both of those guys were my first coaches in Goshen. Came up through, like I said, Goshen Elementary, Divisadero. Was lucky enough to be an athlete at Mount Whitney, where I played baseball and football, and ended up at COS, where some alma mater here in this Zoom. Played at COS for 2 years and then was lucky enough to go on to San Francisco State. Played at San Francisco State, and then a couple years later wrapped up my football career. I played a year of semi-pro football for the Reedley Renegades out of the old Fresno Bandits League. Did that in my late 20s and got banged around a little, and then it reminded me why I was done playing and why I needed to go back to school. So, went to San Francisco State, graduate, sociology graduate there, went on to Fresno Pacific, got my master's degree in education and my counseling credential. Went on through the TCOE Impact Program to clear my credentials, add on my admin credential, my administrative credential, cleared it there to get me to kind of where I'm at now. So bounced around a whole lot, started out in the Bay Area doing group homes, juvenile halls, community schools, CPS work, social work, traveling all over the state, working with at-risk kids, and got me to the prison system for a little bit. I was a probation officer in San Mateo and then Fresno, and then ended up back in the Valley and back home, where I made some connections and jumped into the education system. Worked at with Mr. Valencia there on a couple of projects with prevention programs in the county. Did that for a long time, and then ended up some neighboring districts doing some fun work with athletics and discipline and at-risk kids. And I was the athletic director actually at Lindsay for a couple of years. Did that, won a couple of Valley titles. Our team went off and did great things. As you know, Lindsay's got a very strong infrastructure of athletics. And now I'm here. So I'm currently in Farmersville now at the elementary school as the principal of a TKK preschool, kindergarten, and first grade school. So I've got the little ones. So kind of came all the way back full circle to working with the little ones after working with some older kids for a long time. So that's kind of my background, and I ended up here in Farmersville in the principal seat at Hester.
Well, that's great, Art. We're so proud of you, man, to have the opportunity. I mean, I've seen you grow up in the work that we did together when we were with the county. I have to brag about you a little bit because you were the one that made the game possible in terms of after-school programs.
Thank you.
We had the very first after-school program in our county. I remember you averaging about 350 students a day. And the grant only called for 150. So that doesn't go unrecognized. And I keep that, it's in the front of my brain here of all the work that you did in terms of shaping after school. And now our whole county is flooded and our whole state is flooded with 21st century after school dollars. So, and you were a real true pioneer. I know you played for the Pioneers, but then you became a pioneer in after school as well. And so really wanted to just congratulate you on all of your accomplishments. And it's great to see where you come from, where you're at today. You have a family. I know that you're very much involved with your family and your children and your wife. And, you continue to do some great things in our community, and we're proud of you for that. The fact that you're with our neighboring community in Farmersville. Farmersville is definitely a community that needs that kind of leadership. I know the Farmersville board has done a phenomenal job of keeping everything together in that community. And so we're just proud to have you today. And, we, again, just a light conversation, but really just wanted to kind of find out a little more about your role as a new principal and kind of what are some of your expectations coming in. We all know that we just came off of COVID for a year, but now we have an opportunity to transition, and how we're going to help our families transition, and especially our little kiddos, trying to get them back on track. And so just kind of want to get your take on that today.
Yeah, like I said, transition time, it happened at an interesting time. I was the vice principal at the junior high for the last 2 years. And then I got brought over here right before Christmas as interim, and then kind of did both roles for a little bit until I was board approved as the actual principal here. But like you said, a lot of good things happening in Farmersville. I'm able to bring a lot of the work that I've done at other schools and other districts and other programs. A lot of PBIS, a lot of positive behavior, discipline and structure. That's what we do a lot of in this district. So it's given us the opportunity here at Hester to kind of create a new culture. Like I said, I came in mid-year. That's not always easy. For me, I'm okay with transition. I've worked at a lot of different school sites and environments, but for the staff, it was a little tough having that turnover. And then for the kids coming off of COVID and coming off of complete distance learning, being in this kind of setting, and then going with the hybrid model where we were getting some of the kids back on to where we're at now with most of our student body coming back. It was a transition, not only the learning loss and the academic pieces that were, let me close off that box. Just the learning loss and overall the social emotional part, that Mr. Valencia, we worked in that field for a long time. Just the dynamics that kids go through when they're forced to change and when things are not systematic. A lot of change. We have kids from our district that were spread out literally all over the country because of COVID. They had to move with family and things were, we're adjusting. We had some kids that left the country. So just making sure that we account for all that, and not only providing the academic support, but the learning loss support and the social emotional piece. Our counselors in this district are pretty strong. And as you know, I'm a counselor before I ever became an administrator. So that's something that I was a big part of, is making sure that transition from school to home, from home to Zoom back to school, that it was kind of seamless. But it's been a good challenge. Like I said, I like challenges, and this is something that I wanted to take on. And it being the base school of our district, we have 3 elementary schools, and we do it by content level and grade level. We don't do K6, K6, K6 like some places. Here it's, K1, and then, the grades progress as they go to other schools. So I've got the babies here. We've got 3-year-olds in a wow. in a support program that's contracted out on my campus. So that's a lot of work, and getting to know staff in May was kind of a challenge, and not knowing people's names and transitioning, but we got a good group here. And, my support staff, my leadership staff has done a good job with that transition. So everybody's off campus now. Kids are, off campus. I'm wrapping up the year. We've got some construction going, but looking to come back in the fall with the full head of steam. It looks like things are going to be back to the way they were before, pending the numbers and all the county stuff is progressing in the right way. So that means we'll be back to school as we know it. And kids all over the place and recess and all the stuff that we're used to. So that's what I look forward to.
Well, that's a lot going on. All right. Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot going on.
You got quite the background. You bounced around and had experience in big cities, medium-sized cities, Northern California. And, for a lot of folks that see this podcast down south and other places, they might not know that Farmersville is smaller, kind of country, what we call country here, a rural
very much so.
Area. So the challenges that you face there are are different and, and unique to a bigger city, even a medium-sized city like Visalia.
Absolutely.
So what are some of those hurdles that you and the board and your school itself have to deal with, just specifically being kind of out on the farm a little bit out there?
I think just adapting to the whole dynamic of the pandemic and everything that goes along with it. We're all from this area. I grew up 12 miles from where I sit now, so it's all the same. The valley is very similar. Our challenges in Farmersville are similar to some of the other challenges I faced in other rural communities. We have a migrant population. A lot of our parents are extremely hardworking, field-working community folks. That's the background that I came up in. That's what my parents grew up in, and so I'm very familiar with that type of challenge. And just providing support was very, very important. Like I said, a lot of our parents work from dark to dark. They're out at 5 o'clock in the morning, and they're coming back when the sun goes down. And when they're working in the fields and they're depending on us as educators and us as the school entity to provide not only educational services, but support and safety and meals. A lot of those things are the school's responsibility in a small community like this. And when you have things falling apart like they did originally because of the COVID pandemic, it put us and our community and our board and our teachers and our families in a tough spot. So when that all started, I was still over at the junior high and I was kind of working at both schools, but the dynamic across the board was the same. We had parents out of the home a lot of times. So when we were Zooming with kids, it was tough to make connections and to keep that momentum going. But a lot of dialogue, teachers, support staff, my staff at the junior high did a great job. They were on the phone literally 4 or 5 hours a day, making connections with folks. We did a lot of home visits with our counseling team. School psychs came in, counselors, even our SROs, our police officers that are contracted with the schools were happy to go out and try to bridge that gap. So a number of challenges that we faced, but no different than any other district and no different than any of our surrounding communities that have to face the same challenges. So a lot of flexibility, a lot of patience, and accepting the learning loss and kind of figuring as an educator and as a lead on my campus, how do we bridge that, and how do we make it to get to the point where kids are confident again? Because without school, without the social emotional piece, without the continuity of your peers, it's tough. It's tough for any adolescent. It's tough for adults to get back to the flow of things, but that's our challenge and that's what we're doing. So, like I said, dialogue and making sure that parents are supported, making sure that the school is always available so that we can answer those questions, tying into a lot of our community resources and our partners at the county and in our neighboring districts, and talking to other colleagues and other educators and other administrators. Because there were times when this first started where we'd get a message maybe 9 a.m. By noon, that message had switched completely because either CDE had mandated changed, the governor had changed something, or there was something that come to our district office. So we're zooming it up at 12 o'clock the same day, switching something. So
Wow.
we had to be chameleons a lot of times and figure out a way to support our staff. And whether we were stressed or overwhelmed, we couldn't show it, because as an educational lead, a lot of times they're looking for us for that continuity and support. And if the sky's falling on our end, what does that tell our parents and our support team? So we did a lot of collaborating between the other principals and vice principals and inevitably our superintendent and our support staff. So a lot of making up ground and moving forward. And like I said, the Zoom process was tough. That wasn't easy, but thank goodness we had that opportunity with technology to where it's at now, so we can even have these kind of opportunities, But it did make a difference. There was a big gap that our students had to go through, but here we are to fix it now, and as educators, we're resilient. So that's what we do.
Yeah, well, that's great, Art. Again, I want to commend your board and your community for stepping up and providing that kind of guidance and serving as the hub, as you mentioned. The hub for education. Our parents look to our schools
Absolutely.
for support and for guidance. And when we were talking about the meals, it was so critical this past year, being able to provide support for families, because many of our families, obviously across the nation, were in need.
Right.
Start thinking about our own county, Keith and I, and we talk about this all the time, about how we can support our communities and be able to support you in your current role. but I also reflect on the technology divide, right? So we talk about technology, we're talking about it now in our Zoom call here, but most importantly, what were some of the, sometimes we get in a situation where we're kind of learning as we go, right? Especially
Right.
with technology. If there was something during the COVID time that you as a district leader can reflect on and say, gosh, this is something that we could actually perfect coming into this fall. Thinking about technology, many of our families, we pretty much can go on record and say that everybody has a cell phone, right?
Right.
But I think most importantly, how many of them have the right technology for their children? So can you talk a little bit about some of the work that you've done in helping with that whole digital and technology divide?
Definitely.
And what are some things that we can learn from COVID-19 this past year to take on to this coming fall?
We went 1-to-1 in our district, which means every single student had a device. We provided Chromebooks for every single student. But think about the maintenance and the upkeep with that process. We had broken devices, we had technology glitches, we had internet issues. So then we had to provide hotspots. You've got a device, you can take it home, but if there's shoddy internet or you can't get through, then what? So that was another obstacle that we had to face. And then think of educators. We're all different in the way we teach. Everybody's pedagogy is slightly different. Some of us are heavy technology people. Some of us are not. Some of us are very old school educators and prefer a very traditional way of reaching students. None of that mattered anymore. We all had to go to the same format. So with Zoom, it made it tough because it was very impersonal, and you've heard some of the war stories about things happening in the backgrounds and some of the obstacles the kids had to go through. But bridging that gap and weathering that storm literally, and providing all the technology that we had to provide, and then empowering the parents and students. Sometimes it was older siblings, or it was a Thea or an aunt or a cousin or a grandma that was helping with that process. So we're talking folks that have never been on Zoom, and maybe the extent of their social media background had been a couple of family posts on Facebook or something along that line. So bringing them up to speed and getting them proficient to what we had to do as a district was a huge challenge. But now moving forward, it's a lot better. So to answer your question, I think the one gap that we bridged was making technology a little more proficient for everybody. And if you think of foggy day schedules and you look about canceled days, I've heard some rumblings about those things going away now. You can go back to Zoom. And I know in the Midwest, a lot of places where there's snow and there's cold and there's ice days, there's not going to be that anymore. They're going to go into Zoom. So that provided an alternative that we've never, ever dealt with. We've always called that independent study, or a modified program. But across the board, it's not something that had been fluid until now. So coming back, parents will have that option if you're not completely comfortable, with your kids back in a school setting. A lot of districts and a lot of Office of Eds are going to that option, and you can still do a hybrid type model. So it revolutionized education in a way, because you know how this business works. There's attendance drives. Attendance drives what we do, and without kids in seats and without that instruction happening in classrooms, we don't meet our instructional minutes and we don't have instructional days. But this technology piece gave us some other options, and now you get to go to school on the computer, and you get to have that option in your own home. And with the parents being brought up to speed and with the families all kind of in that loop, we got a lot better, as a district, as a society. And you're starting to see in some of the parent groups that we do, you're familiar with, PK, Zoom was common. A lot of our parents and a lot of our family members that were in that role of a family leader were zooming in on phones and getting on their kids' devices and figuring it out. So I think communication as a whole improved, and it's up to us now to not lose that momentum, and keep it going.
Yeah, great answer. We are with the new principal of Hester Elementary in Farmersville, California, Art Villarreal. Kind of winding down a little bit here. Let's change gears for a second. Art, you touched on being an athlete and coaching also before. And of course, the podcast is called Coach's Conversation Café. or cafecito in my background, as you see there. We go bilingual sometimes.
A little bilingual.
But, yeah, absolutely. What do you take from your athletic background and your coaching, Art? What did you learn, or is there a type of style or maybe a mentor that you had that you kind of implement what they instilled in you to really, apply to your job now and the leadership that you provide and just able to carry out your functions there? Because I know sports is so instrumental to us here, and and as we coach a lot of our kids, it's like, hey, we're not just coaching you for today, we're coaching you to be a positive citizen role models later down the line. So here we all are down the line. So what did you take from that? How do you use it? What do you draw on?
I tell my students all the time, and my teachers, if it wasn't for athletics, I wouldn't be sitting here. I'm not sure what route I would have taken, but I don't think if athletics would have been that support system for me, I don't think I would have continued, to grad school, continued. I've got maybe 15 years of college or something like that under my belt. I don't think all that would have kept going if that carrot wouldn't have been there, and like I said, I started out with good coaches and good mentors, but as far as like role models, it was my parents. To this day, I have a lot of dialogue with my dad, and a lot of his principles and a lot of the things he taught me about hard work and being honest, about doing the right thing, about working hard. That translates to anything you do in life. And with athletics, that was always my goal. To work hard and to try to get the most out of an undersized frame. And I wasn't the fastest dude, and I didn't have a lot of the God-gifted ability a lot of my peers did, but I played at the same level as them and played against some NFL guys and guys that were a lot better than me. And I think the reason that I made it to that point was working hard in class and as an athlete, and they go hand in hand. I tell my own children that, I tell my nieces and nephews that you can't get on the field or you can't get on the court unless your grades are proficient. And you see even some of the travel teams now, my daughter's travel team, the coach wants to know what their grades are like. And I've seen certain travel coaches, AAU coaches at high levels, ask for grade reports. I think that's awesome. As an athletic director, I was always making sure that my coaches balanced the academic piece as much as the athletic piece, because if we have kids on an eligible list, they do us no good athletically. We want to get them proficient in the classroom before we do anything else. But that was my base, being able to really depend on my parents and my family, my entire family, my friends. I'm still close to all my friends that I played ball with, and against a long, long time ago. So being back in the Valley and having coached with you guys a couple of years, it gave me a chance to get back into things, and having that opportunity to get down to that level was fun, man. Because being at an administrative level and as an AD, as an administrator, you hire coaches and you hope for the best, and you hire good people, and you put in systems and you put in systems and programs. But that opportunity gave us a chance to get down there in the grind, and not bad for a couple of old Pop Warner dads, huh?
Yeah, not at all, but not at all. I love it.
Yeah,
and,
no, we definitely, like Keith and I mean, that's the funniest thing, the fact that all of us, were able to coach a few years ago at Mount Whitney High School. And, for some of our listeners out there, need to know that, Pop Warner dads were one thing we were called, but I can tell you right now that we all played college football. So that's the one thing I can say that the three of us definitely have in common. So want to put that on the record as well.
Yeah,
So
put that out
because not everybody gets to go on, and especially where we come from. And that's the most important part of this conversation today is really, it does take coaches. And when we started this podcast, it was really to get our coaches to understand the importance of connection. And each of us can relate. Each of us can talk about coaches that came into our lives and made a big difference. And so again, we're so proud of you. We're proud of the work that you're going to be doing in Farmersville and continue to do in Farmersville.
Definitely.
And we know that our paths will be crossing soon again, and a lot of the work that we're doing in our communities, and we'll be reaching out again. But if there's anything that we can do from this corner in terms of the work that we're doing, know that you can depend on us. Again, for all of our listeners out there, today was a very special day because we have one of our own who came from a community not too far right outside of Visalia in Goshen, California. worked his way up to where he's at today and serving as a principal, a lead administrator in one of our communities that's in real need in terms of leadership. But I tell you what, they got a community that's on the go. Their board has done a phenomenal job. Their superintendent's done a phenomenal job. And we're just glad that you're there and that you're a part of it, Art. So thanks again for joining us today.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Art. We appreciate you. He is Art Villarreal, the principal of Hester Elementary. Thanks for carving out some time. You're going to do well there. You got the compassion, the leadership, the drive. You got all the right tools there, Art, and we're so happy you're in place there, and you're going to make that community proud.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.